Welcome to another Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon video series. Today we're going to talk about how to avoid 11 pontoon boat buying mistakes, tri-toon boat buying mistakes. We're going to go through them one by one. At the end, I've got a couple of resources for you, a free toolkit to help you make sure you buy the right boat, and an opportunity to help you save when you buy your next tri-toon or pontoon, or your first tri-toon or pontoon. New, used, doesn't matter. It's going to make a big difference in the price you pay. So stick around to the end. Let's start with the biggest mistake that people make. A pontoon where the pontoons are too small. It's not so much about the length of the pontoons, it's about the diameter of the pontoon. How round are they? You'll typically find them in 23, 25, 27-inch diameter pontoons, 25 being the most common that you'll find in newer pontoons over the last 10 years or so. If you're going to get a pontoon, sometimes a manufacturer will try to save money to sell it at a cheaper price and put the smaller 23-inch tunes on it. Well, what happens when you put 10 beautiful women on a 23-inch pontoon diameter versus a 25-inch? Well, it sinks further down in the water. It doesn't have the same level of buoyancy, which means that you're going to be chugging through the water more, you're going to have more drag, and you're not going to get the same performance out of the same horsepower motor, the same weight when you have smaller pontoons and bigger pontoons. So it's something to keep in mind. The more people, the more weight you're going to put on your boat more often, and I always use the 80% rule. What's 80% of your boating lifestyle going to look like? You want to make sure that you go with the 25-inch diameter pontoons. Some manufacturers are putting the 27 on, and if you're really going to load it up, can be a good option, but I'm going to recommend 25 is the right way to go unless you're just putting a couple people on. You're not on very choppy water, because you can imagine if a wave comes and it's going to come up over that pontoon, it's going to wash over the deck, and it's going to wash all of your people out of the boat. Not a good thing to have happen. The next is deciding a pontoon or a tri-toon and making the wrong decision. Now, you'll hear some people say a pontoon is a dumb way to go. It's only get a tri-toon. You're silly if you don't get anything but a tri-toon. Well, that may be the case, but it may not. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But the buoyancy thing to remember is that third pontoon gives you a third more buoyancy, which means you put the same 10 beautiful women on a tri-toon, it's going to float higher up in the water because of that extra buoyancy. You put those same 10 beautiful women on a pontoon, it's going to sink down lower in the water, it's going to chug through the water, and you're going to lose a lot of performance from the horsepower. Even a 115 is going to lose probably 10, maybe even 15 miles an hour when you start putting considerable weight on the boat. Now, when you're looking at the pontoon versus a tri-toon, it's a big mistake that you can make. Either spending too much money if you don't need to, or spending the money or not spending the money and being very, very disappointed with the ride quality, with the performance, with everything about the pontoon. So the pontoon, we know it's going to be less expensive, but you're not going to be able to put the same weight on it. You're not going to be able to get the same performance with the same horsepower as you would with a tri-toon. And it's not going to ride as well in rough water because of you're missing some of the buoyancy from that third pontoon. Now, different pontoon manufacturers, when they make their tri-toons, will use different configurations. Just the regular center tube, sometimes that's set an inch or two down to give you more of a V-hull ride characteristic. Some of them will use, they call it I think Bennington calls theirs the PTX, or maybe that's Premier, the oval tube, which gives you more surface area, and others would use that U-shaped. JC is one that uses that. I think it might be their patent, actually. And again, it gives you a different, more buoyancy, but a different ride quality as well, with that flat surface in the middle. So either one of those, there's pluses and minuses to each. I don't think that one of them is way more superior than another. Although that oblong tube in the middle does give you kind of the best of both worlds. Most of the pontoons you're going to find will have a round center tube, maybe a little bit bigger in diameter, maybe set down a little bit, so you get a little bit of a lean and can make sharper turns, which is another advantage of a tri-toon versus a pontoon. So another mistake is people buy a tri-toon, but they don't get a full tri-toon, and it's unknown to them. If you look in the picture on the left, you can see that arrow pointing to the end of that middle tri-toon. It only goes about 2/3 of the way to the motor pod, and it stops. They'll typically call that a sport tube. They have different names for it, where you get a lot of the benefit of the tri-toon, but it doesn't go the full length, so you don't get that full structural support. You don't get the extra buoyancy in the back where the motor compartment is, where the heavy weight is hanging off the back, but you do get a lot of the benefits. It's a little bit cheaper. It's going to save you maybe $500, $1,000, $1,500, depending on the manufacturer on the new side, versus the tri-toon, where that full tube goes all the way the full length. It's built into the motor pod, which it makes it one structural unit, or it's at least welded together, and that's going to give you that full extra third of buoyancy. It's going to give you that full structural support all the way down the line. Now, why this is important, why it can be a mistake, is if you're boating on the Lake of the Ozarks or a really busy, choppy lake in your area, you may need a tri-toon for that extra support. Otherwise, 5 years from now, your pontoon is going to have flexed and have some give in it, and that's going to start messing with some of the welds, with some of the it's just not going to be as strong as the boat that has the full center tube. So it's something to remember. I'm not, here's the thing in boating, it's not that one is better or worse than the other, but it's better for a certain application than another, and I don't want you to overpay for something that you think is something else. So I want you to know exactly what you're getting in that sport tube. It could be a great option. It gets you, 80% of the way to a full tri-toon while still saving some money. And if you're only going to put 6 people on it and you don't care about getting out on the roughest Saturday possible, where there's big 2-foot, 3-foot rollers coming through from cruisers and surf boats and chopping it all up, but you're just on a smaller freshwater lake, and hey, you can get out there and you can enjoy it, that sport tube may be great. But if you are on that extra choppy, really one of the roughest waters that you'll be on, that full tri-toon is definitely the way to go. Another mistake, and this one I am going to make a complete recommendation. People go with the stern drive pontoon. There is almost no situation where I personally would do a stern drive pontoon. You get none of the benefits of that outboard, and you get all of the frustration of trying to work on an engine in a metal tube that's causing vibrations and causing sound, and you can't get access to everything when you need to work on it 5 years down the line, when you need to do some of the maintenance work. And at some point it's going to be a big hassle. It's going to be more costly to maintain, and the only benefit that I see of it is you get full access to the water. You don't have that big outboard hanging off the back, but I would stay away from a stern drive. It's going to hurt your resale value. It's going to be more difficult, more expensive to maintain, and over time, especially if you leave it in the water, it's going to be a big, gigantic pain in your ass headache. So stay away from the stern drive. Stick with the outboard, Mercury, Yamaha, Suzuki, Honda. I've got a video on the different types of outboards. I won't go into that here, but stick with the outboard. Getting the wrong horsepower, it's another big mistake. What people do is they say, they go out for a test drive with 2 or 3 people in the boat. They run it wide open throttle and say, well, that's plenty fast enough. And then when they get out on a busy day and they've got 8 people, a full cooler, all of their gear, and they go out, and that 115 that they thought was plenty fast at 28, 30 miles an hour is now, only going 22, and they can't figure out why. Well, it's because you added an extra 500 pounds to the boat, and now you're on a really choppy day where you're that buoyancy. You've sunk lower in the water, and there's more drag, and now you don't have that same level of performance. So here's kind of a rough guide. A 50 is going to give you slow cruising, 15 miles an hour, just putting around. A 90, you're going to be able to do some slow tubing with kids. Typically, younger kids are going to be happy with the 90. That's going to go plenty fast for them until they get to be a little bit older, a little bit more adventurous. The 115, you can do some water skiing with kids. It's going to pull them on tubes fine, but it's not going to be super fast. You maybe get close to 30 miles an hour when you're loaded up, depending on the other options, if you've got lifting strakes or not, how big the tubes are. There's a lot of factors that go into it, the total length of the boat, what kind of furniture you have on it. But that 115 is going to do a decent job. But when you start needing to go or wanting to go fast, I'm going to recommend you move up to that Tri-Toon. That Tri-Toon gives you extra buoyancy. It allows you to put the bigger horsepower on the boat. And sort of that tipping point is the 150 horsepower. You kind of waste it if you put it on a pontoon, but it's great if you use it on a Tri-Toon. You get the full extra oomph of that larger engine, the bigger investment. So I'm 220 pounds, 6'2". I can slalom ski on a 24-foot Tri-Toon with a 150. I can get up no problem, cut back and forth, and I usually ski about 32, 33 miles an hour, and it does just fine with 4 or 5 people on the boat. Again, you put 10 people on the boat and all these numbers go down drastically. The 225 horsepower, hey, that's going to give you speed with lots of friends. You load it up with 10 people, you're still going to be, the boat's probably going to run 45 or so miles an hour depending on the weights. You load it up with a bunch of friends, it's still going to run 32, 35 miles an hour. You need to be as fast as any other boat on the water. That 300 horsepower is going to be great. If you want to look like a total badass, you put the twins on it and you can go as fast as you want. So there's not a right or wrong horsepower, but just think about how you need to boat, how you want to boat, what conditions, how many people are going to be on, and what that top level of performance, knowing that you don't want to run your boat at wide open throttle all the time. So just because the top speed is 40 miles an hour, well, that doesn't mean that you're going to run it at 40 miles an hour all the time. It's more prevalent with the 90s and the 50s and the 115s, where you can get 30 out of it at wide open throttle and perfectly trimmed. But guess what? That's really, really hard on your engine. You want to run about 75, 80% of wide open throttle for your cruise speed, and that's going to be where you want to operate, or below most of the time. So pay attention to that, and don't be fooled by a demo ride with just 2 people on the boat, half a tank of fuel and no gear. That's the type of performance you're going to get with a full cooler, with another 5 people on the boat, and all the gear that you need in a full tank of fuel. So the wrong layout. I see this all the time where people find a great deal on a boat and they get the fishing set up, but what they're really going to do is they really have teenagers that want to lay out and get some sun, or they get the bar and entertainment center set up because, oh, it looks so cool, it looks great, but then they realize what they really like to do is go out and have room for everybody to sit while they're underway, and you can't sit on a bar stool while you're cruising 30 miles an hour in a bunch of chop. It's just not as fun and comfortable. So pay attention to, again, the 80% rule that I mentioned earlier. What is it that you want to do, or what is it that you're going to do 80% of the time, and try to match your decisions to fit that. Even if you've never boated before, if you're a total newbie, you can still kind of picture in your mind what you're going to enjoy the most and make your decision based on that. Or rent a pontoon for the day and go out on it. Spend $400 or $500 to go out on it and see, oh, we really like this, we really like that, we don't do that at all, that wasn't as fun as we thought, and you can zero in on exactly what you want. The other big mistake I see people make is they don't do an inspection, especially on a used boat, but this really goes for any boat. Checking the floor, checking under the pontoon. How close are the bracings together? Are they 24 feet apart? You know, and that's going to not be as sturdy of a boat as the ones that are 16, 18, 24 feet, 24 inches, 2 feet apart. Are they going to be 16, 8 inches apart? And that construction quality is going to make a huge difference 3, 5 years down the line in just the solid feeling. Checking the electronics, the upholstery, the lights, the gauges, switches, hatches, latches, wire and corrosion and stereo, making sure that you're inspecting all of those things, that they do work and not just taking it for granted. Even on a brand new boat, I've seen people just put down their money, hook up, and leave, and then they get home and they say, oh, the boat was all dirty, or this wasn't working, or this latch doesn't close properly. Even on a brand new boat, go through that inspection process and check it out before you drive away, before you cut that final check, because it's certainly a lot easier to get it fixed before they get paid than after. The engine, especially on a used boat, know the engine hours, know when the oil, fluids, impeller were changed, check the compression. There's a link to how to check the compression down below, and the prop condition. Make sure you look at all that stuff before you write the check. The test drive, this goes for new or used. Make sure that you run the boat and you go through these maneuvers. You start it cold, you listen to it at idle. How does it sound? Even a brand new boat can have issues. Maybe they hung the motor in the wrong hole. It's too high or it's too low. Maybe they've got it propped wrong. If it's a used boat, there's a whole nother issue, which you can check out our used boat buyer's guide video that walks you through that completely. But listen to it at idle. How does it sound? Then just idle out to the middle of the water where it's nice and safe. Do this in safe conditions and go from idle to wide open throttle. How does it perform? How does it sound? Is there an extra spray coming out the back that just doesn't seem right? Adjust the trim if it's equipped. Move that motor up and down to see how the ride characteristics change. Does it cavitate, which means the prop spins out and doesn't grab the water anymore? Go into a turn. Make sure that at about 3/4 throttle, make sure you're being safe. Depending on the horsepower of the boat, it's gonna, maybe you can't do full 3/4 throttle, but make those turns. How does it sound? How does it hold in the water? Does it bank up a little bit? Does it feel right? All of those things need to be done so you know exactly what you're getting, and you can find an issue before you drive away, where again it's going to be more difficult to get anything fixed. Going in and out of gear, is it idling right? Is it going in and out of gear fairly smooth? Does it sound right? And then look, if it's a used boat especially, look for water spitting out of that little pitot hole, that pee hole. You can see the red arrow, and you'll see that if you're sitting at idle, it may just be a dribble. When you're underway, it should be a nice steady stream. If you're getting a trailer, don't make the mistake of just assuming everything's right with the trailer, getting so excited about the boat and the motor that you don't pay any attention to the trailer. The inspection on the trailer, even on a brand new trailer, lights cannot work, bunks can have issues, maybe the tires are bad, and it's easiest to do this while the boat is off the trailer. Another mistake is choosing the wrong financing. A $50,000 boat with the wrong financing can cost you a lot more than a $50,000 boat with the right boat loan. National banks, local banks are typically the worst option. If you're going used, credit unions can be great. If you're buying a new boat, definitely check with a marine lender, your credit union, or a local credit union, and the dealer's lender. We have a whole video on financing that you can check. The link's down below in the description. Check that out if you're looking at financing. It's a great way to save on the boat you buy by getting the right loan. Not everybody wants the same thing. Low down payment, low interest rate, low payment, short term, long term. Whatever's best for you is going to help you. That video is going to help you find the right loan for you. And selecting the wrong insurance. I had a guy I know that bought a brand new Tri-Toon with the 150, excited. First weekend, took it on vacation, got hit by a drunk driver while it was sitting, before they even put it in the water on vacation. They got there late at night, parked it out front, got hit by a drunk driver, and they had the wrong insurance coverage. Cost them about an extra $6,000 to replace that boat because they had the insurance coverage that didn't have the right agreed value policy. Even though insurance is on a pontoon is going to be $300 to $1,000 a year, if it's not the right coverage and you pay $300 and it costs you $6,000 in the long run, that's going to be a huge mistake that you're going to regret. Check out our video on insurance. We walk you through all of that, what to look for, and how to get the lowest rate and the best coverage, because it's a combination of. Now, the biggest mistake, the number 11, is paying too much. I want you to get the right boat. I want you to find the right layout, the right horsepower, tri-toon, pontoon, new, used. I want you to get the right one, and I want you to pay a fair price, get the best deal that you can. The best way to do it, go to our page, boatbuyersecretweapon.com/save. We've got a little program there called the Magic Money Saving Method. We usually have a big discount on it. It helps us support the channel and continue to put these free videos out there, packed with this information that's unbiased. It just helps us to make it worthwhile. So check that out. We also have our Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon Toolkit, how to buy the right boat at the best price, how to demo a boat the right way, questions you've got to ask dealers or private sellers, how to maximize your trade, how to get the best boat loan, the best insurance. There's checklists, there's demo lists. It's packed with everything that you would need to make the right decision. We give that to you for free, boatbuyersecretweapon.com/toolkit, and you can grab that now. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, you can subscribe. We would love it if you commented, shared it in your boating groups on Facebook. We would really appreciate that. And Facebook has also put some videos there that they think you'll find valuable as well. So watch those. Again, we love it when you comment. We love it when you ask questions. We'll answer those questions. We may even make a whole new video for you. And definitely subscribe so you get updated with all of the latest content. Thank you, and we'll talk to you later.